Well, hello, everybody, and thanks for making this webinar. We really appreciate it for those of you here live. And for those of you watching the recording, thank you for making time to do that as well. Mass Timber, the future of green building is what we're going to talk about today. And I'm thrilled to be here with the real stars of the show, Jeremy and Kurt. How you guys doing today?
We're doing great, John. Thanks.
Excited for the opportunity today, John. Thank you.
Yeah, great to have you guys here. So I've learned a lot from you guys about this industry. Of course, I didn't know anything before I met you guys, but it is fascinating, and I'm sure people here will find this to be very interesting, as I have as well. Just some administrative things around the screen you're looking at. This is not Zoom, so it's a different platform. Feel free to make it your own. You can move windows around, maximize the size of the presentation if you're tired of looking at our three mugs, which usually happens, at least in my case, pretty quickly. On the left side, the third button down is a button that will pop up the presenters, the three of us, and you can read a little bit about us because we're not going to bore you with our backgrounds. But if you're interested, you can read about our backgrounds there. You can also link in with us there. You can also get our email addresses there, and see the websites, respective websites. So that's that. I want you to know that's there because we're not going to waste your time talking about our life story. The tile that you see there in the middle, that green square thing, is actually will link to the offering that we're going to talk about today. So if you click on that, it'll launch a different window and go right to the offering we're going to talk about today. If you have a question that you'd like to submit to any one of us, please use the Q&A functionality you see below the presentation window there. That's specific to questions, so we can manage the questions here on the back end more efficiently that way. And if we don't get to your question, we have a way of emailing you later with the answer should we run out of time. Last thing I'll say is the group chat is open, so feel free to chat away. If you got something to say about what's being said, you got something to add, we want to make this as interactive as possible. For those of you who feel compelled to participate, we welcome that, and you can do that in the chat box. So Jeremy, let's kick it off. If you go to the next slide. I'm just the MC here. So I'm with Fola Capital. I'm the CEO of Fola Capital. We're the intermediary that's involved with raising this money that we're going to talk about today. We are a SEC registered broker dealer. So it's our job to make sure that we're compliant with all the SEC rules around raising capital. This is a Reg D 506C. That we're going to talk about today. And as part of my responsibility is to make sure that we say certain things that are according to the regulations, one of which you're looking at here. We're going to talk about forward-looking projections, and they are just projections. If you would take a moment to read the slide, that's our standard disclaimer around these projections. These are our projections as a result of some business planning the team has done, but actual results may differ. So with that, Jeremy or Kurt, whoever it is, I'm turning it over to you. Take it from here.
Hey, thank you again, John, and to everybody that's taking the time out of their afternoon to join us live or later on, to come back and catch a recording of our webinar. We do really appreciate your time today. Again, my name is Kurt Blankenship. I'm the Vice President here at Crosswood, and along with our President, Jeremy Adams, we're going to walk through our investment opportunity we have as we seek to grow the future of mass timber with our facility here in Waynesboro, Virginia. You should see the outline of what we're going to talk about to you here today. This webinar is really targeted to an audience of the accredited individual investor. So for some of the folks that we see that have joined us here today that know a lot about the mass timber or lumber industry. Some of this is going to, we might be covering things that, are basic to you. We do have an institutional webinar planned specifically for institutional investors that would be interested in investing with Crosswood. There's a date forthcoming for that for the month of April. So again, just briefly here, we're going to go through our story, the mission and vision of Crosswood, talk a little bit about our specific product offerings, our market capture, and the projections, and most importantly, the investment opportunity. So I'm going to turn it over to our president, Jeremy Adams, to get us started here. Thank you.
Hey, thanks a lot for opening us up, Kurt. And I just want to, again, thank everyone for joining us here this afternoon as Kurt and I present our Hardwood Mass Timber manufacturing facility here in Waynesboro, Virginia. And I'm just going to go over, we call this the bottom line up front. It's just the upfront summary. So we've got two main takeaways that we want for today's presentation. And number one, as Kurt spoke to already, the number one goal here is we are seeking a $10 million capital to leverage our mass timber manufacturing equipment order and facility renovations here at Crosswood. And number two, we're going to present to you why hardwoods present a strong, durable, and cost-effective solution for mass timber. There are many reasons for that, and we're not going to dig way down deep into that. This briefing is going to be high level, but there are numerous reasons why yellow poplar specifically is a viable candidate for hardwood mass timber production. Namely speaking, the APA's recent update to now include yellow poplar for the mass timber production. So our story. So as you know, you've already read our bio. So I am a 22-year retired Army major, and I just recently retired in 2022. Kurt is also a former Army captain, Army aviator, 10-year service, a West Point grad of 2001. Between the both of us, we have 40 combined years of experience within the U.S. Army and the DoD. And I just want to walk you through kind of what has led from, military to Crosswood. So as I was transitioning out of the military in 2022, building off of my previous real estate experience and renovations, I was working towards a Class A contractor's license here in the state of Virginia. In my pursuit, I was looking to obtain certifications for traditional timber frame structures. That's whenever I was exposed to cross laminated timber. I started working with some vendors and exploring that option, and we couldn't get the panels. We could not get the panels to build out of CLT here in Virginia. So we started looking into the manufacturing piece, and then I was connected with the Virginia Tech professors and some other leading universities that have looked at yellow poplar and hardwoods in the production of mass timber. And we've just been building off of that amazing opportunity from there. So that is for Kurt and I, it's a change of mission. It's a change of mission from operational readiness to manufacturing excellence. Next, I'm going to lead into our mission and vision statement. And quite simply, our mission here at Crosswood is to become the first hardwood mass timber manufacturer here in North America. Our vision is hardwood mass timber construction will emerge as a leader in sustainable building practices that will influence residential, commercial, and industrial construction. We are driving the evolution of construction methods here at Crosswood, leaving a lasting impact on both the hardwood and construction industries. Kurt and I talk about it every day. The hardwood industry has had its challenges over the last decade. And it seems like almost every month we are reading about a local hardwood mill that is closing its doors. And we really see this mass timber opportunity as a way to impact that and further utilize the underutilized resources that we have here in the Appalachian region. And that's very important to us here at Crosswood. Next, we're going to get into the mass timber market. Now, this is high level. Again, big picture here, the mass timber market within the United States. And this is a slide that is put out by Woodworks. Woodworks is a nonprofit organization that really promotes the use of mass timber in the United States in construction. Mass timber is just an excellent building product. It's stronger than steel and concrete. It stores its carbon sequestration. There are numerous benefits to building with mass timber. And looking at our chart here, you can see the expansion in mass timber beginning in 2012. And really what that is credited to is the International Building Code in 2012 began to adopt better codes to allow for mass timber construction. There are two other factors that are directly related to the rise of mass timber construction within the United States. The second factor would be the insurance companies. So insurance companies early on, whenever mass timber began to come on the scene here in North America, they were reluctant to insure the product. They didn't really understand it. There wasn't a lot of data out there. And as more data has came out on the superior fire resistance and strength of these mass timber structures, insurance companies are now backing the product. And finally, third is increased manufacturing. There have been more manufacturers that have come online since 2012 that are now producing mass timber products in CLT and glulam. And that is why you see mass timber really expanding in the United States. And I also want to point to the Northeast region. You can see clearly on this chart here that the Northeast is a lot of activity of mass timber construction in the Northeast. And we're going to discuss that a little bit more in this following slide. The last thing I want to point to here on this slide is the market projections. Mass timber is projected to expand from 445 million in 2023 in the North American market to reach $4 billion by 2032. This again, this just shows you that the expansion of mass timber, it's a better way to build, and that is very evident here with this chart. So keeping our eye on the Northeast. So as you can see, the red circle there, so that is the Appalachian region. And I'm going to flip back to the previous slide. So you can see all the activity in the Northeast. And then when we look at the manufacturing landscape within the mass timber industry, there are no mass timber manufacturers in the Northeast region. Currently, there are 15 mass timber manufacturers that produce cross laminated timber in North America. Primarily there's some big company names there, Smart Lam, Bender Holtz, Mercer Mass Timber, Dothan really, I say in Dothan, Alabama in 2012, Smart Lam has really pushed the envelope in bringing mass timber to North America. They have expanded operations to Montana now. They have multiple plants. But getting back to the Northeast region, why are there no manufacturers within the Northeast? And my answer to that is the mass timber manufacturers are located close to their supply chains. Mass timber is currently produced using all softwood materials. And throughout the Northeast region and the Appalachian region, we have all hardwoods. And I just speak to that as the competitive advantage for Crosswood as we introduce yellow poplar as a hardwood species in the production of mass timber. We will be the first mass timber in the entire Northeast region. And as you can see in the slide before, the Northeast region is one of the hottest regions in North America for use of mass timber in these high-rise buildings. Logistic costs. Logistic costs currently can range anywhere from 5 to 15% in additional costs in your mass timber construction costs. By being a localized manufacturer, we will be able to reduce those costs and spur more mass timber development, therefore expanding the use of mass timber throughout the Northeast region. Now I'm going to pass it on over to Kurt, and he's going to discuss a little more on why hardwoods for mass timber.
Hey, thanks, Jeremy, for setting the stage here. Our value proposition we have at Crosswood. So as Jeremy already mentioned, the key thing that we're taking advantage of here at Crosswood is the introduction of the yellow poplar species for certified CLT panels in the United States. We could go on and on about how excited we are about this and the quality the yellow poplar will bring as a new species for mass timber. This is a good time too. Some of these things to point out a little bit of background. In the lower left corner of your webinar console, there's some resources that we've made directly available to you. 3 of them are outlinks to our crosswood.build website, where we talk about have some news articles on our product development and a little bit about a recent Department of Defense policy where we summarize that. We also provide a direct link to that DoD policy, and Jeremy's going to talk about that a little bit later with market development. But that third resource there is a tulipwood report, and it's actually a phenomenal report from the American Hardwood Export Council that just is about 20 pages of talking about these points that are on the slide in front of you. The number one point, if you take nothing else away about like why use yellow poplar here at Crosswood, it's about the growth to harvest rate. Yellow poplar is an underutilized wood species in the Appalachian region. We like to stick with the 1.4 number. We get that straight from the USDA. However, if you look state to state, that number, is actually higher in Virginia. I believe it's close to 1.9 growth to harvest. And even in the state of North Carolina, it's almost double. Or it is double. It's 2.1. There's no almost about it. So just, across the entire Appalachian region, if you average it out state to state, we've got, way more yellow poplar, available than what we're currently harvesting. So we're taking advantage of that underutilized resource. And mass timber is already proven, to be, has superior strength, amazing fire resistant capabilities, and the natural properties of yellow poplar, its density, its strength to weight ratio, make it a very viable candidate, or it wouldn't have been approved by the APA. Jeremy, myself, and as supported by that American Hardwood Export Council report that I just talked about, says, yellow poplar, it's beautiful in appearance. And, those folks that have been in the industry for a while, hear about terms like biophilia and just simply like, how special it is to live and or work, in a mass timber building. And we can, know that yellow poplar will, be right in line with all the others in North America because, they're gorgeous, the ones that have been built in Europe with American yellow poplar. But, just before we move on to this slide, the final point is just to realize that, hardwood mass timber is cost competitive because of the low cost of yellow poplar. It's an underutilized resource, and, it is comparable to southern yellow pine. And as we, take yellow poplar into the mass timber industry, we're also in discussions with some partners that we're going to talk about here about looking at other underutilized hardwood species to take full advantage, of the resources that we have in the Appalachian region. I think I missed anything here, Jeremy, back me up, but if not, we can go to the next slide.
No, thanks, Kurt.
So the point here is really just to talk about, and sort of to let you all into to what we see the 3 points of expansion, how Crosswood as a company, is going to be focused on expanding mass timber. Jeremy already did a good job setting the table on localized manufacturing. Our strategic position here of our manufacturing facility to take advantage of the Appalachian timber stands really sets us up well to have low logistic costs, to manufacture these structural panels, and put them in developments, up and down the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast part of the United States. Second key to our expansion is awareness. Jeremy also talked about, in our change in mission, about the great work that's been done at Virginia Tech. They're one academic partner, that we highlight, but, it is, we wanted to take the time out to talk about, our commitment to collaborating, with these partners to promote awareness in mass timber. The final point to expansion is really education. We've already been in contacts with our local community college, Blue Ridge Community College, about bringing a mass timber installation course here into the Shenandoah Valley. But, education doesn't just stop in the classroom. And everybody that's here, is a professional, has taken time out of their day, for which we are grateful, to educate themselves. Maybe you're not interested in investing with us, and that's fine. But maybe you're just excited about mass timber, or simply excited about seeing a new manufacturing facility come online here in Augusta County, Virginia. So, that's why we also, call out a partner like Mather's Construction Team, because they've been wonderful collaborators. To wanting to educate their workforce and look at changing, some of their development, practices, and how they could incorporate hardwood CLT into their construction projects. So as we go to the next slide, I'm just going to go a little bit deeper into these points of collaboration with Crosswood. These are really the highlights across industry, academia, and the government that have shown considerable support. One of those links that I talked about that's available to you in the resources there is, I believe, is directly to a news article thanking the USDA Forest Service for supporting us with a Wood Innovations grant in FY23. So, we'd be remiss here to not call that out to a potential investor to show you that, the federal government is behind mass timber and they're behind Crosswood. Virginia Tech, Mathers, we already talked about those. Northwest Hardwoods has been great. They are one of the nation's leading hardwood lumber suppliers. Very excited about developing an underutilized resource like yellow poplar for future use. And then those three in the middle, Bog and Timber, Spell Structures, and the little group represent some titans in industry that have really been leading the charge and furtherance of mass timber. And I think that was what I wanted to cover. Did I miss anybody important, Jeremy? If I didn't, I think I want to turn it over to John and let him go into some specifics about our investment opportunity. Hey, I think you're muted, John.
I am. Thank you. We put a lot of thought into this and how to scale this operation in a way that's attractive to investors. And this is what we've come up with. So there's a total of approximately $55 million worth of funds required. And we've broken this down into two phases. The current raise is a $10 million raise. Basically, the majority of that going towards the equipment order for the facility, which has been secured, by the way. I don't think that was mentioned. But, the facility is in place. Now we need to fill it with the manufacturing equipment. So we're conducting a $10 million convertible bond raise. The majority of those funds will be used to purchase that equipment or finance that equipment. The balance will be used for working capital. This is the first phase. In the second phase is an anticipated Reg A offering to occur sometime in the first half of next year, 2025. And the way we've set up the corporate documents, which, by the way, are all available on the offering site, the way we've written up the bylaws and constructed the C Corporation is already pre-configured to support the Reg A offering with a class of stock that's been allocated to support the Reg A offering. So that will be an equity offering occurring sometime in 2025. The reason we started with a bond offering, it's a convertible bond offering, which are becoming more and more popular with smaller companies. We're talking large corporations issue corporate bonds all day long on the public exchanges, but smaller companies are using them now. And there's a couple of reasons for this that we're seeing in the marketplace. And these, we believe, are benefits to investors. So certainly starts out as debt, and it converts to equity. And the good news for investors is if it is a 5-year term on the debt portion. So after 5 years, the investor has the option of getting their principal back. And during the 5-year time, the interest earned is prime plus 2%. Prime is determined on the date the investor's money would leave our escrow account and go to the company. But on whatever day that is, whatever prime is for 5 years or the remainder of the term, the investor owns that prime rate plus 2%. But the good news is after the term for the investor, each investor has a couple options to convert that principal into equity. Well, option one that you see on the right there, scenario one, is you just hold the debt till security. And if there's other opportunities that the investor has to redeploy those funds where he or she may want to do that, they're free to do that because they get their principal back. Traditional equity deals, as you know, you have to wait to sell the company in most cases to get your investment back. But this gives a 5-year window for investors, gives them the opportunity to recover their principal if they're not satisfied. If they can get a better deal with another investment, then it allows them to do that. But what we really see happening is one of the two other scenarios. So when the Reg A is offered at the valuation of the Reg A, the investors at the very least get a 20% discount. Bondholders get a 20% discount at whatever valuation the Reg A is determined to be at. However, we're also offering a $40 million valuation cap. So if that valuation is much higher than 40 million, the investor can choose to take that option, in which case the principal on the bond investment will convert at a higher rate if the valuation on the Reg A is higher than 40 million. And I've got a graph to show you that, but if you've invested in this type of thing before, you know what I'm talking about. So it's a great, like, Swiss Army knife of an investment where an investor can get into the deal at a pretty good deal right now as a bondholder, and then watch the company perform. And then if you choose to, at the 5-year term on the bond, you can either recover your investment and redeploy it, or most likely convert it to equity at that point using one of the two conversion options. The next slide, if you'd move on, kind of demonstrates what happens graphically with the value of the discount versus the value of converting at the cap. You know, at the cap, at the $40 million cap, shortly thereafter, the graphs cross each other, and your investors are better off converting at the cap if the valuation goes up and up and up over time at the time that the Reg A is offered. So that kind of graphically shows you how that works. So we're really confident in this type of offering in this market in particular. Prime plus 2 is a pretty good rate on a return, in our opinion, at Fola Capital. But during the term, at the end of the term, as the business plan is executed and the company grows in value, that the investors can decide in 5 years to convert to equity if they choose to do so. And that's it. If any investor has any questions, my contact information is in the presenter bio information. Also, we'll end with our contact information. Feel free to contact me or anybody at Fola Capital to discuss the offering more details. And one more thing while I still have the mic. The security agreement and all the documents investors need are posted on the site. You can look at them, download them, bring them to your attorney, whatever you want to do. Everything's posted on the site, on the offering site, and you can get to it by clicking the tile on your console in front of you. So with that, guys, unless I've missed anything important, you got the baton.
Hey, thanks for that, John. You did much better on that than what I might have done. I would have pointed the wrong direction with my hands. But just to finish it up here, before I turn it back over to Jeremy, who will close, this chart just shows our use of funds. We thought it was important for investors that are interested in the opportunity here, just sort of really to understand what we're going to do. So as we already talked, as Jeremy led off with in the bottom line up front, we're going to use this $10 million, to do our initial equipment order. And while that might look like a long timeline for anybody that's not used to the industry, to be order in 24 and get it over a year later, that's actually very standard. The mass timber is an engineered wood product. The manufacturing equipment is of high quality. It's custom made, and the lead time is anywhere from 16 to 18 months from the time we place the order before it is actually the equipment is produced and shipped and installed in our facility. So that's one of the reasons that it's important for us to go ahead and get that equipment on order to execute our business plan, as John talked about. And the rest of that working capital is really about product development. We have plans already in place to either verify some of the existing testing that was done in the academic research that we talked about, like at places like the West Virginia University or Virginia Tech, or to do some new testing specifically, to update, yellow poplar CLT testing on things like its fire certification, its acoustic qualities, and actually its ballistic properties, which is has been studied, something that is of interest to the Army Corps of Engineers Engineering Research and Development Center, and something that we have planned for our test panels actually this summer that we're pretty excited about. So that's our use of funds here. If we go to the next slide, Jeremy, I just want to show you like, hey, what $8 million? Like, what is that? Well, it would take a lot longer than anybody would want to spend on a webinar to go piece by piece. But what you see here is really just a footprint of our 125,000 square foot warehouse that we have here in Waynesboro. And, and essentially everything that it takes to turn a yellow poplar piece of lumber into a structurally certified hardwood cross laminated timber panel. So essentially from left to right across your screen, what is happening is those yellow poplar lumber boards, lumber is coming in. It's going through some pretty rigorous quality control checks to ensure things like moisture content and being and it meets all of the requirements to be used in a structural application. And then being put together there in the middle of that production line and finally pressed into a 40-foot by approximately 10-foot wide hardwood CLT panel. It'll come out there on the right side and go into our fabrication line where the entire panel will be sanded, which is, allow it for, a really gorgeous application for interior spaces like we talked about earlier in the brief. And then the other key part of CLT and mass timber in general is, the ability to use something like a CNC machine. And that's what's in the upper right-hand corner of this layout is a CNC machine big enough to cut a 40-foot long by 10-foot wide panel. And so we will precisely do things like cut out doors, windows, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing requirements, and drill all the things that are required to, put this panel into a building location at a development site near you. Thanks for letting me walk you through this. To close this out, and give it back to our president, Jeremy Adams.
Hey, thanks for that, Kurt. So next I want to go over our Crosswood market capture that we see here in Waynesboro. And again, it just kind of ties back. I'd like to tie this back to our opening story and how Crosswood has kind of transitioned from a CLT builder to a CLT manufacturer. So early on, whenever we were looking into this, I was approached by some developers in Lynchburg, which really validated our business model and in solving that problem of availability of mass timber products. So what we have here on the left, whenever we're talking localized manufacturing and how that's impacting and validating and expanding the use of mass timber, is I had a development group, some doctors approached us, and they are already funded for 5 1,000 square foot hospital buildings in Lynchburg, which is 60 miles away from our location. And they want to build with mass timber, and they want to build with Crosswood Mass Timber. And again, that points back to the localized manufacturing. It's going to be cheaper for folks that are closer to Crosswood's location to build because they're going to save 5 to 50% on those material costs. And it also just tells a good story for the state of Virginia. We're building these mass timber buildings out of timber that we're harvesting right out of our backyard here in the Appalachian hardwoods. This project is slated, the first building is slated to break ground this year. Obviously, we are not in a position to meet that first building, but we will capture buildings 2 through 5 on this development as long as it keeps tracking the way that it is. So that is, that's a big deal for us, and we've been approached by numerous builders and developers as they've heard that mass timber is coming to the state of Virginia and will now be more readily available here in the Northeast. We're approached by developers in Richmond, Northern Virginia, the Baltimore Turnpike. There's a lot of interest and a lot of folks that want to build with mass timber, but whenever they start looking at the shipping costs and the cost of logistics, it really kind of pushes it out of reach. And with localized manufacturing, we are going to change that. The next thing I want to point to is Kurt spoke to it briefly, and it's downloadable on our resource tab. Excuse me. Is the DoD's memorandum, and we anticipated this last year. The DoD came out in September of 23 with a memorandum, and this validates again mass timber and how it's a better way to build in the adoption of the Department of Defense. This memorandum states that beginning in FY27, all Department of Defense contracts and buildings must now consider mass timber as a viable construction option. That the DoD is arguably the largest contractor that we have here in the United States. And that really, again, validates the use of mass timber and how it is expanding rapidly here in North America. It is a better way to build. We see mass timber as the future of construction. It's not going to replace stick framing totally, but there are a lot of applications that are really going to benefit by building with mass timber, CLT, and glue lamp beams. Another thing I'd like to point to in regards to the DoD market capture and Crosswood, we are a veteran-owned manufacturer, and to my knowledge, we will be the only veteran-owned manufacturer in the United States. And why is that important? You know, Kurt and I have lived in that DoD world for a long time, so we understand DoD contracting. And being a veteran-owned business, 3% of all DoD infrastructure contracts are earmarked to go to veteran-owned companies. And as the DoD has adopted mass timber for construction beginning in FY27, we are in a really good position to capture a lot of this emerging DoD market. And that's going to lead me into my next slide. So as briefed, the Crosswood projections with their localized hospital builds and the DoD potential. This is our projected projections through 28. As we discussed, we do have an 18-month lead time for our equipment. So if we were to order our equipment, our goal is to order the equipment by the end of April. That is going to push our equipment being delivered August, September of 25, and then we will go through a 90 to 120-day commissioning process while we get certified as a hardwood mass timber production facility. And then beginning in 26, that is whenever we will be capturing revenue. And we have projected 2 of those commercial buildings that are backing these revenue projections, and that is compounded through in 27 and 28 as we come online. And that is going to be it for our presentation. And John, I will turn it over to you if you want to go ahead and close this out. Again, I would just like to thank everyone for taking their time today to join us here as we discuss Crosswood and our hardwood mass timber manufacturing facility. There's a lot to unpack here when we're talking hardwoods and the production of mass timber. And Kurt and I are 100% available to take any questions, or if to drill down further. There's a lot to discuss when we talk about the feedstock and yellow poplar. You know, there's a lot of considerations there. We've worked through all those. We've solved all those challenges. But again, feel free to reach out, and we would be happy to expand upon anything that we have discussed today. Again, and thank you.
Hey guys, great job, guys. I appreciate it personally. A few questions have come in before we leave, Jeremy.
Yes.
And we do have time, so I don't know which one of you would better than answer these, but one is now that yellow poplar is approved for use in mass timber, will other manufacturers begin production using hardwoods like that map you showed us?
Hey, John, this is Kurt. That's a great question. Jeremy, you want to just jump back to slide 8 so we can look at that mass timber manufacturing? Thanks for the question to the audience. Will one of the other dots on the map here, switch from softwood to hardwood? Well, couple points. You see a lot of dots up there in the Pacific Northwest, and I would say good luck finding a yellow poplar tree in Washington or Oregon. But in seriousness, as Jeremy pointed out, mass timber manufacturers, as the folks in the industry know, are located close to, their lumber supply. And so that's why the folks that are there, that's why they're using softwoods. They're taking advantage of those softwood timber stands. The other thing, though, more seriously, because I guess somebody could, try to figure out a way to grow some yellow poplar trees in Oregon, but this mass timber, cross laminated timber, specifically, it is an engineered wood product. We talked a lot about, the strict quality assurance and quality control that goes on, that will go on in Crosswood's facility and goes on in places, like Logan Timbers and Smartland. And so it's no small feat, retool, to change everything about your manufacturing process to pull in a new lumber supplier. So we're not worried about that at Crosswood, but we are very optimistic at Crosswood that we will not be, the 16th and final mass timber manufacturer, and that we will not be the only hardwood mass timber manufacturer in North America. I'll making a short question kind of long an answer, but to quote one of the fantastic researchers from academia that we work with, the future of sustainable building is simple. It's just use more wood. So, we look forward to, the next owners reaching out to us here in a couple of years and saying like, hey, how'd you guys get your hardwood facility online? We want to do the same thing, down in Tennessee. Thanks for that question, John, and the person that wrote it.
Yeah, thanks, Kurt. Jeremy, you have anything to add to that?
No, Kurt, you did a great job there, and he caught it there on the end. But we encourage the additional use of hardwoods in the production of mass timber. The hardwood industry. I mean, we need that. The yellow poplar is an underutilized, undervalued hardwood species. We have plenty of it here in the Appalachian country, and we encourage that, and we hope to see numerous hardwood manufacturers come online. There, just for comparison, in Europe, I don't want to misspeak, there is between 60 to 80 mass timber facilities spread across Europe, and that's that's making all mass timber products, CLT, glulam beams. There's a few LVLs, and then in the U.S. here we have 15 CLT manufacturers. So just kind of gives you an idea of the room for growth that we expect to see here in North America. And then as we're looking at the landscape on the business level, I mean, we see these European companies making moves to quickly establish themselves here in the North American market. Recently just announced here about 2 weeks ago, where there was a big partnership that was formed from a major European company with one of the leading mass timber producers up in Canada. And again, it just shows you that this market is emerging, and it's going to continue to expand in years ahead. So thanks for that, Kurt.
Good stuff, guys. Another question came in around, why did you select Waynesboro? Now, I know it was on my bucket list, and I've been there twice, but why Waynesboro? And I think this map might give part of the answer, but just in your own words, if you could address the question.
Yeah, sure, John. I'll take that one. So kind of, as we look at this map, again, localized manufacturing, Waynesboro, number one, it's our home. So Kurt and I mean, we grew up here. We're actually both from West Virginia, and then we've settled here in the beautiful Shenandoah Valley. We searched all up and down the 81 corridor for a facility to house this manufacturing line for hardwood mass timber, and it was a challenge, right? It was really challenging to find that location. We didn't want to build from the ground up because we know how expensive that is, and we were very fortunate to link in with some partners and get set up here in our 120,000 square foot facility here in Waynesboro. And the location couldn't be better in our eyes. We are directly adjacent to Interstate 81 and 64. We have access all up and down the Northeast. If you were to take a 400-mile circle radius and put it around Waynesboro, we are reaching markets from New York City down to Charlotte, North Carolina. Those are massive mass timber markets, and our location here is just key. It is so key. Localized manufacturing, we're going to make mass timber affordable. It's going to be readily available, and we expect to capture a lot of the markets up and down the Northeast corridor.
Cool. Kurt, anything to add to that?
No, thank you.
Okay. This next question is being asked by a person who clearly knows more about the industry than I do, so I'll just relay it to you. It says, why did you select a 10 by 40 foot size while other manufacturers are producing 60 foot long CLT panels?
So yeah, that's a good question. And other manufacturers, are at longer lengths for their CLT panels. Some are at shorter widths. Um, the the APA sets the recipe for mass timber products. This is what you have to do. This is what you have. Everybody has a little bit different of a kitchen, as we were reminded recently. And by that I mean, there are different ways to to meet that. The most important thing, as we discussed, is following that strict adherence to the quality control for these engineered wood products. For us, we were as we evaluated, some of the testing that we've had done on the yellow poplar species, and really looking into like how we can maximize both the efficiency of our production line and get the most yield out of the yellow poplar lumber that we're going to be utilized. That's really where it came into choosing 10 foot. That 10-foot width for us is actually right at about just over just almost at 11 feet. But that really has to do with taking that random length lumber from our local sawmills, making them and getting the most yield out of it. The 40-foot length though is quite interesting, and one of the biggest reasons that we looked at that and that we chose that was we want to stay. We anticipate that a lot of our CLT panels, will go into the export market. Again, we mentioned, go read that Tulip Wood report, see how excited they are about American yellow poplar being used in buildings in Europe. And so, how do you get a CLT panel over to Europe? Well, you put it in a shipping container, that's right at about a 40-foot length. Now, they have 20-foot ones and they have 60-foot ones, but 40 foot's that optimal amount. And so yeah, a couple things: market projections, lumber yield and efficiency, and then our footprint. So we're very excited about being able to capture that market development, or to be able to meet that market capture that Jeremy spoke to earlier. Thanks for that question from the audience.
So, sounds like a good answer, Kurt. Jeremy, you got anything to add to that answer?
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to that, and I believe Kurt might have touched on it a little bit, is with these mass timber building is grid spacing, right? Grid spacing really comes into play. And when we talk grid spacing, we're talking about columns, right? So mass timber, these tall buildings, I'm not talking residential buildings, but the up to 18 stories is columns. The spacing between those columns is typically 25 and 30 feet. A 40-foot panel is going to easily span that 30-foot column to have that open space look that you get with these mass timber buildings. And then, when we look at the different types of buildings that are being built with mass timber, the sweet spot is really those type 3 buildings that are 50,000 square feet and below. I guess I would point to like a bank, or maybe a small hotel. That's really the sweet spot where like 60 to 70% of all mass timber builds. I mean, you do have the, you have the large scale buildings, the 100,000 square feet and above, but that sweet spot is that 50,000 square foot and below. And we really, in conjunction with collaborating with our architectural partners, that they too agree, the 40-foot panel really is an optimal panel for us to really capture a lot of market space here in the mass timber.
That's really interesting. Probably got time for one more. I like this question. Can you elaborate a little bit more on how, being a veteran-owned company has benefits for Crosswood? Could you kind of rehash that a little bit?
Yeah, sure, John. I'd love to speak to that a little more. As we talked with the DoD market, being a veteran-owned company it means something with the DoD. Like whenever they earmark, whenever they allocate $1 billion for improvements to VA hospitals, that gets put into a bucket, and 3% of that is earmarked towards is going to be earmarked towards veteran-owned businesses. So being and being the only veteran-owned manufacturer in North America is going to really give us a competitive advantage in this DoD market. And I'll also say that the DoD market, our projections, we really never, we didn't apply a lot of that into our projections. One of the things that we don't drill down too deep in this presentation is our additional products that we're going to be offering here at Crosswood. We have some patents pending for some products. We have some different prefab structures. We're going to capture a lot of market space there as well. But being a veteran-owned company, it really gives us a lot of strength, moving forward and capturing a lot of this DoD market.
Yeah, that's cool. Anything to add to that, Kurt?
No, I think Jeremy did a great job covering it. Thanks.
All right. Well, my job is taskmaster here, so I think we'll wind down now. If I'll say some closing comments, guys, and then you can chime in with anything you want to end with, and we'll hang up on time or a few minutes early. First of all, I want to just reiterate all the information, the details. We just hit the wave tops here. The details, the business plan, the financial projections, the security agreement, private placement memorandum, corporate documents are all on the offering site. You can reach the offering site by clicking the green tile in the lower left part of your screen or going to folacapital.com and go to the campaigns page to look at all that. And if any investor has any questions about those documents, feel free to contact Jeremy or myself to discuss anything you might want to discuss surrounding the offering. And again, in the upper right, you have our contact information should you want to reach out to us or learn a little bit more about us. On behalf of Fola Capital, I want to thank you for participating in this live event. And for those of you watching the recording, which a lot of people do these days, we welcome your input as well and feedback through the channels that I've discussed. So I'm done, guys. You guys want to sign off, and then we'll end it.
I'll go first, Jeremy, and then let you close. Again, I think we've thanked the audience probably about 4 or 5 times. It doesn't hurt to do it again. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for the question. Thanks for the people that reached out to us to make sure that in advance and said, hey, Kurt or Jeremy, I can't make it, but I hope that you're recording it. So really appreciate your attendance. You have all our contact information, as John said, and do us a favor, spread the word. If you're excited, if we piqued your interest at all, or you're excited about this, or maybe it's not for you, but you think somebody else might be interested in talking to us, whether from an investment opportunity, a partnering opportunity, or maybe they're excited about crossing Waynesboro off their bucket list like John and coming and visiting us. By all means, we appreciate the referral. Thank you, Jeremy.
No, thanks, John and Kurt. And I just want to thank the audience as well. Thank you for your time today and your interest in what we're doing here at Crosswood. And I'd also like to just take a moment and thank our partners once again. We spoke to it throughout the webinar. The USDA grant that we received from the Forest Service to support our efforts in bringing North America's first hardwood mass timber facility has been beneficial. It's been such a help for us kind of getting this thing off the ground, and really, really supportive, and just can't thank them enough. And all of our local and industry partners, just want to say thank you again, because the strength of Crosswood is the strength of our collaborators and partners, and we really appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll be signing off. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
All right.